Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll get started. Welcome everyone to Farming Fundamentals 2023. How many of you took the class last year? Good. Quite a few of it. We got some on Zoom too. So y'all kind of know the spiel, you kind of know what's going on. It's going to be similar to last year, but a few different things mixed in. But I'm Taylor Reeder. I'm the horticulture agent here in Williamson County. So I handle residential and commercial horticulture. Questions that come in about frostbitten trees and shrubs, which has been my #1 call this year so far. Those come to me, bugs, plants, all that good stuff, crop, small farm production, all that good stuff. So I'll be answering a lot of those questions. And Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. I'm Matt Horseman. I do a lot of the ag, livestock, called ag and natural resources section. So you'll see my name come across in lots of different areas. But to give you an idea where we've come across from here. So I've seen a few of you in some of our other master series. So we're going to kind of back up and restart so you have a better idea where this all came from. But so much of it came from just because we got into the point where we had so many calls about homesteading, or I just purchased this piece of land and come tell me all the things that I can do out here. And when you start going from A to Z, you kind of get into this overwhelming factor of trying to have this big picture of all the different things that you can try to do. And then you don't really have any idea what entails each one of those, or you may have some idea what this one entails, but not what these others. So it's really hard to get an idea of where you want to go until you start to get a feel for what you want to do, and more importantly, maybe what you don't want to do. So that's kind of where we came up with developing this class. This class is going to be lots of different things we're going to talk about, but its idea here is it was an answer to a lot of your guys' calls. And so hopefully it will address that as we go throughout. But I think Taylor and I are going to try to get you started with kind of the background and basis for the class. And then we'll start working forward from there with your questions and try to get you going, set some expectations for what you guys want, because that's ultimately what this program has to be, is what you want. And if we're not giving you what you want, we need to know, because we need to get it fixed. So I'll let Taylor go ahead and get started, and we'll just navigate. If you come up with questions, let us know.
Very informal. So anything that comes to your mind, and if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat box. We're going to kind of monitor that as best we can. If we don't get it answered tonight, hopefully you've gotten our emails with our contact information. You can call, text, email us any questions you have anytime. That's what we're here for. So like Matt said, this class arose from the needs of the community. People calling us and saying, I've got this new piece of property. What do I do with it? What do I want? Or maybe what do I not want to do? And so it actually worked in great with another program that was developed by UT called Farming Fundamentals. So we kind of married the two of those. And we'll go through a little bit about that. So we're going to do today orientation. Overview of the program, what you should expect to get out of this class, some additional resources and things we think would be important for you to know, exciting things you can participate in the future. We're going to talk about some of those resources, as well as some of the cost share programs, which is kind of an underlying basis for some of you taking this class. So we'll get into the requirements, schedule. Ooh. Yeah, I guess we just go to our page. And hopefully on Zoom, hopefully you're seeing this. If you're not, please let us know. So on our page, you hopefully have been here. If you registered for the class, you probably landed on this page at some point. This is the homepage for our Williamson County Extension website. And on here, you'll find all the different categories of what we cover, educational services we give. So
yep. So so you can get to either one. You can get to the farming fundamentals either through horticulture or agriculture.
So we'll click on agriculture. You scroll down and you'll see all different kinds of topics that we have information on. But if you go to the master series, this is where you'll find information specifically on some of our master programs, as well as farming fundamentals. So you can click on that farming fundamentals page, and you will get information about the class. And on there will be our schedule for this year. So we are going to start with our welcome and introduction. And the first 3 classes after this are going to be Zoom classes. So we won't be meeting in person, we will be meeting virtually. We already have speakers lined up for those classes, and additional information and resources that we're going to send to you. And each week you'll get an email from us recapping what we talked about that week and what you should expect for next week.
Yes.
And after we do the Zoom classes, we're going to start our fun in-person hands-on classes. And I've already been asked a few times, what farm? Because we say on farm, what farm? Well, we don't have one specific farm. If we did have one that did everything, that would be great. But we don't have one farm that does every single thing we're going to talk about. So we'll be visiting different farms and sites throughout Williamson County. So you'll get experiences of different types of agriculture and horticultural practices. We're going to try to make this as engaging and hands-on as possible. We want y'all to get a good experience, and we feel like learning through hands-on is just one of the best ways to learn. As you noticed, we're going to start at 5:30 and end around 7:30. Yeah, we're not going to keep you here long. And so we're not going to be able to go super in-depth on all of these topics. We were going to touch on, give you the fundamentals, the basics of each of these topics, and go a little bit more in-depth on some of them. But you're going to learn kind of a good idea, general overview of each of these topics. And then we have classes, other classes that we can supplement with some of these topics where you can even learn more.
Yeah.
So some of our master's series and things like that.
Yeah, and so looking through here, you know, we tried to like build and bring stuff into the ag park last year. During the months when it's typically a little bit colder, we decided it'd be better off just to kind of get through some of the virtual stuff that as we start talking about kind of the second portion of this program about the beginning farmer option. These are kind of some of the requirements, but we also are going to try to tweak them to make it a little bit more interesting for you guys. So like the basic business is going to be more about marketing. So if you're trying to set up your little like a little hobby farm for cut flowers, this class will kind of get into some of those basics for marketing. So some things that might be interesting to you if you're wanting to take it beyond just something personal for you guys. And as we mentioned, we will try to do our best to be in and around the Franklin area as best we can, just to make sure the reality that traffic is the reality. So when we're looking at it, I know we've got some that are on Zoom tonight. That's going to be hit or miss. Most of the time, it's going to be a miss as far as trying to do the hands-on portion. There's just really not a good way to do hands-on and do it virtually and have the same experience. And the experience is meant to be you getting your hands on it to feel, you know, get to see some of these things in action. So we might try to record snippets here and there or try to make like a 2 or 3 minute video of some step that's important. But for the most part, we're going to try to make it so that you're able to be in person and we focus our attention on that. So if you're kind of going through here thinking, hey, we'll try to do some of these Zoom, we'll do our best on some, but probably more than likely we're going to miss most of them.
Self-service. I mean, we have to do with our phones, and self-service isn't always that great out and about. So we don't want you to think you're going to get to see it on Zoom and then we won't even be able to show it because we don't have the cell signal. So we're really, that may be an option like Matt said, but don't count on it. Try if you can to be there in person. That's where you're going to get the most out of the class.
Yeah. So this class, like I said, you guys attend and what you want. For those that in the beginning farming, the ones with the start are ones that they kind of require for their requirements for that. But good news is those are going to be recorded. So if you happen to miss that night, you can go back and watch the recording and that'd be just the same.
So if you were wondering why is there a star beside some of this, that's for some of those certifications, those requirements for some of those cost share programs that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So they're not necessarily required for everyone, but if you are going to participate in those cost share programs, some of these classes you have to have watched or attended.
And there's some questions in the FAQs that you guys would typically see right here, but I think for the most part, we're going to try to answer most of those questions as we go along.
Yeah.
All right, so where's Canva?
So yeah, so you can find all that information on the website. Sorry for those of you that saw February 2nd on there. I know some of you emailed me and said, wait, I thought it was the 6th. Why does it say the 2nd? We had kind of missed that one and accidentally left the date there from last year. Sorry if that confused any of y'all. Hopefully you saw the email. All right, and on our website, there's not just information on farming fundamentals. As you saw, there's a lot of different resources and things that are available to you. Some of those include, and if you have your smartphone, you can scan these QR codes, but we have our service directory, which is on the ag page, and it has different, like, you want a well done. Here are some of the people in the community that do that. And Matt.
We'll show them here.
I'll show.
So we'll send you this presentation, so you'll have these if you want to be able to go back and access them a little bit later.
But we have different things like sample analysis. Who's done a soil test with us before? A few people, yeah. Or a soil test with a private lab, yeah. Done maybe water or one of the private labs around here. We offer soil testing. We offer site visits. We do disease and diagnostics. So we have a lot of different resources for you here that aren't just.
So here's one of the sites that Taylor's referencing that's really important for whether you got animals, plants, birds, bees, anything like that. This is one of the more important sites you're probably going to access quite frequently.
Yeah, so there's our soil sampling information. So whether you're doing field, lawn and garden, we will take those samples here at the office, help you fill out the forms, take them up to the lab in Nashville, which is where they get analyzed. We do insect and plant diagnostics. So we have a diagnostic team here that's run by me and Jerry, one of our part-time employees, and we do diagnostic. Like I said, the main call we've got this year is what's wrong with my plants with all the freeze damage. And then we also offer site visits as well out to different, and there's Jerry showing people why their plants are dying, doing a soil moisture test. So we do offer this service as well to homeowners where we'll go out and say, this is why your plant's dying, or yeah, your tree does look pretty risky, or maybe you shouldn't grow Kentucky bluegrass here in Tennessee. So that kind of thing. And then we do forage analysis. We have, and we'll probably go to the rentals page. Yeah. So we also offer forage analysis, if that's something you're interested in. And we have rental equipment. So we have some things are free, like our hay core sampler, our soil samplers, the hay moisture tester, and then we have really fun things like armadillo traps that you can take home and catch armadillos. What you do with them after that, well, that's up to you.
Definitely not our problem.
Don't bring them back to us. But we have different things that you can also rent at our office and use on your property.
Yeah. So
and at the bottom of every page is a little contact us.
And there's important sampling because as we go through some of these classes, how you sample can make or break your sample and what analysis we get. So it is very important. So if you go to take one, watch a refresher if you've never done it before. If you've done it before and you've done it wrong, watch a refresher. But it is really key to being able to get the most information out of your sample. So, but we'll reference this as we go throughout the entire course as we get specifically into each one of those. Let's see, the next one.
Next one was the directory.
Well, we could do the.
So we offer farm visits, and you've got a form there you can fill out to request a farm visit. And we come out, whether it's myself, Matt, depending on what questions you have, and we can go through and talk about things you can do on your property.
So this is a free service. Getting that scheduled is the next challenge. But this is the best way outside of this class. This is the best way to get a feel for what's going on in your property, because we can go through this class and we can talk on the phone. We can have a conversation in here and we can start getting a good feel. But it's really hard to be able to create a plan or come up with some thoughts that are not specific for your farm unless we actually see it. Everybody's got different terrain, different soil, all different things. And so we can tell you something that's general, but it may not necessarily work at your place because everything's a little bit more of a challenge in Tennessee. And so the good thing is it keeps us employed, but it also becomes more of a challenge. There's not one concept or one idea that you can roll over each year and make sure it works. So this is a great opportunity for you guys just to get a better feel for what's going on your property and how you can make it work, whatever you're deciding to do, make it work on your property.
Yeah, we can say, maybe you don't want to install a pond on your property, or maybe that's not the best place for a fruit orchard in the middle of your woods, you know, it's things like that we can go out and kind of analyze on a situational basis.
Most of the time, it starts with what are your goals? What can Mother Nature do? And somewhere in the middle, we come together.
Just do the best we can.
So take advantage if you would like to have that. Let's see, where else are we going here? So for those, we'll go to the small ruminant, but this could serve in a lot of factors. So one of the things that we continually had questions about, especially as people move in or your first time in an industry, and all of a sudden you've got a tractor for the first time, and now you've got a broken down tractor, and where do I even go to get this repaired? Can I get this repaired? I've got a few acres I'd like to do for hay. Who do I get to come cut the hay? Lots of different things. So over time, we've started to try to compile a lot of this information into these service directories. These are not somebody necessarily that we completely vouch for. These are people that have these services, and we'll be able to put them on here. Typically, it's people that have been, the name keeps coming up repeatedly time after time. But we don't go through there and vet every service there is. We try to just make it, here's an option, an easier place to find people that offer these services. So, and as we send each week, we'll send a recap email, and we'll put in the links to some of these things so that you have direct access to where this is at. But there's one on the horse side that's got a few more things geared towards horses, and then we have one on the beef and the small ruminant. So a little bit more geared towards those things. I know Taylor is trying to work on putting some stuff together on the horticulture side. That's obviously a much broader range of topics and service providers. But if you guys ever notice one, if you got somebody that's doing something for you and you notice they're not on here, tell them to send us their information, and we'll try to get it on here, because it's only as good as the information that we're given. So we can try to do our best. But this is often a good time to use as a default, especially like, hey, there's no hay out there. Where can I go? All these guys are probably have no hay either. But it's a starting point as you're starting to look through for some things. Let's see where we're at next here. Master series.
We can go through it again. So we mentioned master series, and master series does not mean you have to be a master of any of these things to take any of these classes. It is just the title that has been given them. But these are, if you want to go more in depth on a topic, whether it is beef, dairy, small ruminant, horticulture, gardening, we have master series where you can take, depending on this class, you know, it could be 6 weeks, could be 14 weeks, and you can go very in depth on all the topics that we're going to touch on in this class. Those are usually offered annually at certain times of the year. I know Matt's in the middle of Master Horse, Master Small Ruminant right now. I've just started Master Gardener. Master Beef will start
in the fall.
And so all of these are usually held on an annual basis. And so if you're interested, you can click on each of those and learn a little bit more about what's offered in that class. So Master Beef, which is going to start in the fall, and those are the topics from last year. Those are kind of the idea you can get of what's covered, how long you can expect it to be, different things that you can get out of those classes.
So we've tried to structure a lot of them to meet what your guys' interests are and needs are. So some of us, convenience is more important than maybe the functionality of whatever you're trying to do, because you just can't get there or you're traveling all the time. So most of these programs we've tried to design around what you guys are interested in. So as you guys go through this class and start to get a feel, hey, I'm more interested in this topic or this topic, that's what these classes are for, is to give a little bit more in depth about it. I'm a visual learner. That's how I learn. So virtual is great, but I need to actually see it in action. So each one of these classes, so this is just Master Beef as an example from this past fall. So there is a virtual set that is kind of offered statewide of topics. So it could be nutrition, health, all different types of health, but marketing, things like that. Cover a wide range of topics and diverse amount of speakers from all over the state and the Southeast. So that's what those are offered virtually, same time, 5:30 every time. But the visual learner in me looks at it and goes, I need to touch something. So then we turn around and go, hey, let's pick like 7 topics that we think are relevant, what people are actually needing. So let's go ahead and do hands-on. So we'll go around farms and do those hands-on. So you can kind of see, we'll do some pasture walk. We'll simulate actually pulling a calf. So you get that idea. So you can see what some of those topics are, but that hopefully will accommodate lots of different learners, lots of different availabilities for your schedules. And then you get to just kind of pick and choose what works best for you. So there's so many options. Like I said, here's Master Gardener.
And I just have the 2024 interest and stuff. Because we already started. But yeah, the topics we'll cover Master Gardener, things like soils, of course, plant botany, biology. We'll go into disease, we'll go into native plants, fruit production, veg production, all the different topics you can think of and maybe associated with gardening or landscaping, like design. We'll touch on that in Master Gardener. And so those basically, we're just telling you about these because if we get on a topic and you're really interested in it, like small ruminant, and you don't get as much out of the class as you wanted to, you want to go even more in depth, well, we have options. And so you can go as in depth as you want on those topics.
Then as you go into a lot of these areas, you'll find that there's also a resource area. Those are popular resources that we have found that are very relevant to what you guys are doing. A lot of our program areas have what we call an IRM calendar, an integrated resource management. So whether it's Master Gardeners or goat or horse or any of those, so it's the whole calendar for the year about what time you should be doing things, and kind of just giving you a clue to, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the exact time that you need to be doing it, but it's cluing you in about what should be coming up. These are really great resources to have. So I highly encourage you, whatever your passion is, most of these areas have an integrated resource calendar that you can get on there and just kind of have as you're put in the planting shed, put in the truck, whatever that may be. It helps you be thinking along. Sometimes when you're talking about breeding animals, you need to be thinking about, okay, if I put the buck in here, this is when I hope to have some does or whatever that may be.
Yeah, we've got our fruit and veggie one just came out for the year, and then we have a turf one coming out soon. So it's gonna have we have a turf one, we have an even more in-depth turf one coming out soon.
So there's lots of great things. There are emergency to-go kits, like, hey, what do I need to have on hand? If I'm going to own an animal of some sort, what do I need to have? Even though I've got a vet that I hope to call for any situation, they may go, hey, it's going to be 2 hours before I get there. You need to do these things before I get there. And so have some of these basic things. So there's a lot of little things like that it's really ideas that's come from you guys. So if you guys continue to give us information, we try to develop resources to meet what you're looking for. All right.
And then, yeah, we talked about site visits and farm visits.
Okay, so.
And then stay connected with us. So not just on our website, but we have information that we are pushing through Instagram, Facebook. We have resource videos on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. So we've got recordings that are already up there. We will put new stuff all the time on all of these different social media sites, as well as our upcoming events calendar. So we'll send you this, of course, and you will get the QR code. But we try to keep those as up to date as possible with what's going on. So if you're interested in, pop-up classes, things like that, we will be pushing those and putting those on our social media as well as our website.
So here's the page. You can just kind of see a variety of things that just randomly pop up and get going. This is the most recent one, so you can get a feel. So this is a backyard poultry project. This is for adults. It's been geared towards kids, but there's such a demand for this all across the country to be able to raise the golden eggs in your backyard. And so this is what this is exactly in response to. you kind of just get the information. This one's actually a 3-part series, but more about getting the right information at the right time as you go through that, raising a chick all the way to that hen actually laying those first eggs. So, or the pullet laying those first eggs. So there's just kind of example of some of the classes that are upcoming. And this is typically where you'll find those one-off classes, blueberry class along the way. Keep having to do this each time. Irritating.
Probably maybe better.
It is what it is. Oops.
So as he goes to the next slide, you can follow us like whatever on there, and throughout the class, we're going to keep you up to date on those upcoming classes, whether it's poultry, fruit production, home landscape classes, field days. The university has field days. We have a research station not too far from us. You may have seen it in Spring Hill in Murray County. We have Middle Tennessee Research Station. So we'll have field days throughout the year, like backyard fruit. And then new publications all the time are coming out. And so we'll keep you up to date throughout the class on things that come up we think you might be interested in participating in or knowing about. We just got so excited. We just got a new apple and pear publication, which if you're not a fruit person, you're not going to be as excited as me. But I get questions all the time on what are the best apples and pears for Tennessee. And now I have a publication that has all the different cultivars and varieties that do well in Tennessee and ones that don't. And it's going to be like, please don't try to go for Fuji apples in Tennessee because they're just not going to do well. Here's some better options. And it has supplier lists on it as well where you can buy those. So we have resources like that all the time that are coming out. We'll keep you up to date on.
Yeah, and that's the important part. There's a lot of things that people will tell you. Or businesses will tell you, and we're here to help. We help businesses and we help residential consumers like yourself, producers like yourself. But there's a lot of products that move into the state that are sold into the state that never have a chance in the world of actually growing or being able to thrive. And so one year they may do great when all the environmental signs are all kind of lining up for it. And then the next year you have an unbelievably hot summer with no rain for 3 weeks and they're all toast, or it drops down to 0 degrees and they're all toast.
2022.
Yeah. So 2022 won everything. Mother Nature won every event.
So how many of y'all from out of state and come to a different climate than you? Any of y'all? So you know the struggles of you used to be able to grow something really well. Can I grow it here? Or it didn't do well here. So we're going to hopefully touch on some of those things of best practices for Tennessee. And that's why we love having this class, because we can cater to what does well in Williamson County, not just the state of Tennessee, because across the state, it varies, climate varies, topography, soils. So we're going to be able to focus and give you information for Williamson County and what would be best for you and your property.
Yeah. And one of the questions that was on the chat is probably the same for you, because I'm guessing everybody's from a lot of different places here. It was asked about the farm visits. Do you have to be in Williamson County? No. I mean, I've had some for Somerville, which I know the gentleman, maybe he's on here. And so when it's really, really far, if you happen to have another piece of land somewhere else, we'll try to coordinate with maybe another agent in another county to make sure we get served. But we try to work pretty well within the counties surrounding Williamson County and trying to make it feasible and possible, because there's some other counties, just depending on staffing, they may not have the ability to make those requests. So we're here to try to serve you, even though it says Williamson County and the surrounding areas. We just want you to make sure that you get the answers you're looking for. So the same would go when we're talking about Williamson County resources and things like that. It's going to pretty much be the same for a lot of your areas. So no, when we say Williamson County, it means the surrounding areas too.
And we didn't go into, extension and all that. And, if you have questions, feel free to ask us. But there is an extension office in every county in the state. So you may not be in Williamson County. There is an extension office in your county, but there may not be necessarily, like Matt said, enough people and staffing in the county to do a lot of what we are very blessed to do here. So we're happy to, help answer questions and help out.
We're at a point. Any questions that you guys have?
Anything so far we touched on that you're excited about?
I want
Yeah,
to,
your apple and pear trees. I put mine in the ground 3 years ago. Got my first apples and peaches last year, a few of them,
Mhm.
and then the birds got the rest.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'd love to see your list.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We'll send that out to y'all.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
yeah, there's a lot of things that they have found just over the years that have been kind of designed to live around here.
Well, yeah.
Because we have cedar trees.
Well, yeah, they do a lot of breeding, especially in other states. Every state has their own breeding program or something. And so they do a lot of breeding for disease resistant, which is our biggest thing here. The humidity just kills us on a lot of production. We'll talk about that when we get into fruits and veggies. But they're always coming up with new cultivars, new varieties that do well here, so.
You're gonna go through like a generic list on the course of the different state run and federal programs that might be available. I noticed taxes and stuff like that. but,
Yeah,
you know,
so actually tonight, we're going to talk about a few of those options that you might have that are not on the too good to be true list.
Right,
Because there's that list is actually only about that big.
right. I know
That-
they killed the quail program.
Yeah, so we'll go through a few of those,
Yeah, and
but
maybe you can go out to some farms that have utilized the
Yeah.
programs, and they can tell you more about it as well.
yeah, we can definitely do that. I'm curious, how many kind of have a focus more on like small ruminants, animals? Anybody have, that's kind of more their interest level?
Poultry. that is
Anybody
poultry.
on poultry? How many on poultry? Raise your hand real high. Okay, so the gentleman that's doing the backyard poultry program, that when we do it that day, he'll be the one speaking, and so he is by far the best resource there is in the state. He won't like that I said that, but
What about horticulture? Fruit, veggie, couple hours, beekeeping, all that, yeah.
anybody have beekeeping?
Bee- Okay, good.
Beekeeping, fruits, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that helps is we'll spend a little bit less time focusing in necessarily on the animal side of it. But we'll still highlight some of those things that are available for that. Hi, guys. It's out on the mezzanine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so these, as we get into it, does anybody knowingly purposely signed up because I knew this was part of the beginning farming option? If you don't know what I said that by that, that's okay. We're going to cover that because maybe a few of you it will hit on. Some of the others, it's not going to matter, but it might be something for you to be considering on down the line. Because even though we're not all there, or very few of us are involved in agriculture of some aspect because that's how we want to make our sole living. I would be surprised if anybody in this room wants to do that, but there might be a few of you. Either way, if you're doing something, you want to try to maximize your whatever your business is or your hobby and minimize your losses. And that's where more importantly, that's where we start to talk about a lot of different things along the way is it's minimizing losses rather than trying to maximize profit. But we realize that this is a hobby thing. So along the way, there's a couple of programs that are out there that can help you with your startup. And obviously, there's requirements behind each one. So I don't like to get people really excited about something and then just yank the carpet out from underneath them. But some of these may fit what you're interested in. So real quick, raise your hand. Does anybody have sheep or goats or cattle? Okay. All right, so some of you, this may fit into what you're interested in for the first one. There's actually a second option. So the Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program, has anybody heard of that? So the Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program is a cost share program through the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. It was started with the tobacco settlement. This was 20-some years ago. It started with that. A chunk of that went into the Department of Ag. And what they found out, it all started a long time ago. We don't have to get completely into the weeds on it, but Tennessee had the worst cattle when it came to we call feeder calves that were heading stocker calves that were headed west to the feedlots. Nobody wanted to buy Tennessee cattle. The genetics were terrible, and they get out there, they did awful. So Department of Ag, UT, we're trying to come up with a way to make Tennessee cattle more desirable. Lo and behold comes the tobacco settlement money. So they put a bunch of that money into the Department of Ag, and they developed what we call this cost share program. This encouraged producers to be able to start going through educational series, to be able to start learn how to better manage their cattle, how to manage better quality cattle, how to get the right genetics in some of these cattle to make them more desirable, make sure they have the right equipment to be able to handle these cattle so that they could start sending them out west, and there'd be more demand, obviously more of a return for Tennessee. So 20 years later, this is one of the staunchest programs that the state of Tennessee has. There are supporters and very large supporters in all 95 counties for this program. This is the bell cow for all the programs that they have. So this is a cost share program that is strong today. And it is based on attending some like a master's level class. It started with Master of Beef and has expanded beyond. There's like 15 different classes now that are entailed in this class. And so it's a cost share program up to 50% at a max for different category areas that we'll start to talk about. But as you start to look at it, the important parts are the deadlines. There's a few non-negotiable things with this program. This program is designed to help you, but there's a few things you just have to be black and white about because people will take advantage and it will never end. So one is you only apply after October 1st, and you can never apply after October 7th. It is a tiny, tiny window, and it's just like a hurricane hit when that time comes, because everybody's in a mad rush to do it. You don't have to do anything else other than apply, but that's your only window each year to apply once you qualify. And then nothing, the key point is nothing you purchase prior to October 1st actually qualifies. So you have to make sure that things that you want to purchase to qualify for the program only happen after October 1st. So this was traditionally for people that had larger scale operations. So what we consider for the beef cattle, like 30 head of beef cattle, that'd be like 15 mama cows and 15 calves would be 30 head of beef cattle at one point in time. Or it could be something like sheep and goats. If you had 50 head of sheep and goats, you could combine them or have one species, you would qualify for this program. Well, what do we have sitting in here? What do we have all throughout this county? All of a sudden, these huge chunks of land are now changing. And so it looks a little bit different. Everybody says, where's agriculture going? It's going away in Williamson County. And I just kind of counter with it looks a little bit different. We don't have 500 acre farms with 200 mama cows on there. Now we have, 50 10 acre farms. And that's pretty true. 10 may be considered a pretty large farm anymore, but we have small acreage farming with people with small amounts of cattle. So the number of cattle and other species and some of our ag things may be decreasing, but the number of producers is drastically increasing. So we have, which is a great thing. Lots of people want to do it. Well, some of these traditional programs no longer may be traditional because they're changing a little bit. And so over last year, they came up with this option called the beginning farmer option. And this was based on, okay, if you're just getting started into the business, you may not have a bunch of capital up front to be able to justify spending on some of these things that we think are very good investments for your operation. So maybe we'll let you in to help you build up. Well, obviously, if you have 10 acres, you're probably never building up to have 30 head of cattle on there or 50 head of goats, sheep. So for us in those situations, you may be a very limited participant in this, but you may not actually be taking it to the next level. But that's okay, because right now, those people, if you own those small acreages, you can still participate in this class or in this program. But there are some minimums when it comes to the time that you can do it. So Taylor, if you'll go ahead and click. So by qualifying, so here, let's go through the program. Let's go actually go to the next one and come back. Let's go to the next one, come back. Okay, more fun. Let's find out if you qualify for something like this. So this is what some of these things look like. So they do livestock equipment. It could be just basic equipment, some scales to be able to weigh cattle or goats and sheep. It might be some working panels. It might be a seeder to be able to help seed or spray, to help spray weeds if you've got weeds. It's a very wide variety of categories within livestock equipment. And that's each year they set kind of a number. It could be $1,500, it could be $1,600. It kind of depends on how many people apply for the program each year. But that's the maximum you can get reimbursed. So you can spend $3,000 and you would get $1,500 back. You spend $10,000, you still get $1,500 back. So there is a cap on how much you get back, but it's based on 50%. So you look at genetics, if you're looking to buy a buck, you could get up to $1,800 in genetics. Well, if you want to buy semen would count too. So if you want to kind of do AI work, that would count. Working structures, herd health, it's such a priority now. We start talking about all the different potential diseases that are moving around, making sure you've got a very healthy herd. That's very important. You get dairy, livestock, hay storage, start to build hay barns. And so that's a big one. Hay equipment is on there. If you'll go to the next one. So we call all those areas application A. And so to get into ag enhancement, first we'll go through beginning farmer, and then we'll kind of go into some of the other options. So if you've got a bigger acreage and maybe you got a bigger vision on what you want to do in its horticulture, there's some options there as well for you. But this is what this term is called for the Tennessee Department of Ag. They call this the beginning farmer program under the ag enhancement. We'll send it to you. But it's for those that are not meeting those main requirements that they have as far as having a certain number of head. Good news is we weren't sure. So last year they did it the first time, and they might act like, hey, this might be the only time we're ever going to do it. But they came back again this year and said, if you participate the first year, you can do it the second year. And so now where they've kind of left it is, this looks like this is a 2-year program. So for anybody each year, you're going to get 2 years potentially you can do this program. So if you complete this class, you would have 2 different years that you could actually participate in this class and get those full funding options. It doesn't matter that you only have 3 or 5 cows instead of 30. You still get the same option. So if you wanted to build a hay barn, you had 5 cows, you could still do that. But you can only do it 2 times, where everybody else that meets those main requirements can do it year after year after year after year. So it's been a great program. It's completely revolutionized the cattle industry in Tennessee. And now it's revolutionized the whole ag industry, as well as producer diversification. So you can kind of look up here. These are kind of some of the minimum requirements for beginning farmer, but you can look down here. So the first year they had 0. You can have 0 cows and build something. And they found out people are pretty clever, and they figured that out pretty quick, because you didn't have to have any. So they kind of thought it was intuitive that you had to have something. So they planned on buying one, but they never bought one. So there are some minimums. So a cattle, you can see there 5 head, goat, sheep 10 to 49, hay on up. So this is what we call application A. Well, there's a second one. It is not yet to the beginning farmer, but it might be something as you think about it, and we'll send this information. It's called producer diversification. It is through like application B. That doesn't mean anything right now, but it is more geared towards agritourism, the horticulture side. Actually, the main focus is agritourism and horticulture. So there might be some high tunnels. A lot of times right now, as you build a high tunnel, and then you qualify to be able to participate in some of these programs. But this is the pride and joy of Tennessee, and really all across the country. There's no other program that's really set up like this. It's really for the benefit of those in the ag and horticulture industry. So anybody have any questions on the beginning farmer program? Yes.
So would you need to file a Schedule F for 22 to apply for?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, and we'll reference it as January 1 being the beginning for the question moving forward. So do you need to file a Schedule F? If you're going to apply this upcoming October, did you have to file a Schedule F in 2022? So the answer is no. You can say I intend to file one for 2023. So next year you would You fill out that application on October 1st, you write, I intend to file my first application in 2023. Okay? It's not, you do not have to submit a Schedule F, but they may request one. So it's kind of random luck of the draw. So a lot of this equipment and stuff, they will go through and do a random, probably, I think some of the equipment's on the list for 5 years. And so they may come and call you in 3 years and go, hey, are you gonna be around in 2 days? Can I schedule time to come look at your barn? And so they may come out there and look at your barn, because the first year they did it, they ran into somebody, one of them had a.
You gotta hold it up high. Oh.
Yeah.
Already, it had full battery.
One of the people built a barn dominium out of their hay barn, real quick. One of them had all the hay sitting outside and all the RV and boats all sitting on the inside. So they quickly found out that, hey, we better have some sort of check on this, or this program will be eliminated pretty quickly. So some of the things they're not going to check very much on. Other things they're going to, the higher price things, they're going to try to check a little bit more frequently on. But yes, for 2023, you'd say, indicate that I'm going to file one the next year. So you don't have to have one to do that, but.
Just stand near there.
Okay.
All these are dead.
Yes,
What items are they reimbursing on the V schedule, the agritourism, for instance? What's the reimbursement for the agritourism?
It's,
would you mind pulling up? Yeah, so it can be a wide variety. So there's some people like that have done. You pick them, and so they decide they want to put up a little stand, and so they'll help maybe with that stand that they're going to do. You know, a lot of people have kind of argued and hadn't got to the point is I need help putting up a high tunnel, and they're going to do some vegetable production. So they haven't got to the point they're willing to help you get the high tunnel up, but they'll maybe help get the second one up. Or they'll help with any maintenance. That may help with some trying to improve that first high tunnel. A lot of this was geared towards, they wanted to make sure you put the first investment into your whatever your business was. They didn't want to be the first one and a year later find out, I don't want to do this anymore, and they lost all that investment. So the worst case scenario on a lot of things is if you go into a business, you get ag enhancement funding for a set of scales, and they go, hey, we're going to come out and look at your scales, and you say, I sold out, we decided to move to 10 and don't have the ability to do that anymore. Typically the worst case scenario on that is that you will pay back whatever that amount they gave you. So.
and this is the application from last year, and that's why it says closed. They don't have the new one up for this year, but this is in application B, the agritourism section. These are some items that might be eligible if you are applying for agritourism.
And we'll send you a copy.
Yeah, we'll send you all copies of these once we get have we gotten the new one then?
No, but
Yeah.
you won't get those until,
Did I see the limit on pay for that, is like 13,000?
yeah.
So, yeah, about
It's
12,000.
12,000. Yeah, so these are a little bit more challenging to work through. These are, you're in competition. Typically, what we call the application A, which is a lot of the livestock here ones, or roadcraft, you are not necessarily in competition with it. As long as you qualify, you're going to qualify, you're going to probably get through the program. Like I said, they're not trying to play gotcha on any of these. These are much higher. And so you're now into a little bit more competition. And so you're having to go against other people. Honestly, it's going to depend on how many applicants they get.
And they're gonna give preference, and they kind of list through here, ones that are educational. You know, they're gonna look through and really kind of vet what you're doing and then decide, you know, it's like Matt said, if they have a bunch of applicants, they may pick and choose which ones they feel like meet what they're looking for more so. So the application process becomes a little bit more important as well.
Matt, I think you just answered it with the prior question, but I'm wondering, so you have to demonstrate prior to funding or applying, you have to demonstrate like a sincere action to farm. And I'm asking because I have on order a huge greenhouse that's coming in from the Mennonites at the end of this month. I'm going to be starting a perennial flower business in Williamson County, but it seems to me that like, that's not something I could be reimbursed for. It's like going forward if I wanted a new structure. Is that correct?
Yes, so, and the basis of that goes back to October first being that key date. Anything that you purchase prior to October first is considered ineligible. So,
Oh, shoot,
so
okay.
if you'll go back to, Taylor, if you'll go back to the schedule, let me give you a little bit of a rundown of the schedule. Okay, so here's the schedule kind of to follow by. So October first is when you apply. So anything purchased prior to October first is not eligible. So the way it's going to go is you're going to apply. It's just a very short blank sheet, but we help anybody out that needs help getting that filled out. And then we'll help deliver them those days because it is tried and true. If you take it to the mailbox on the postmarket on the 8th, they're not going to take it. They're just going to shred it.
You have to meet minimum prior to October first.
You don't. Yeah, so yeah, well, when it's being recorded,
Yes.
So the biggest thing I would say is if you had documentation or proof that whenever they came out there and audited you, that you had those animals or you could or have indication. So you may have 3 cows out there. And that obviously doesn't meet the requirements, but most of the time we can do the math that you had 3 cows, they probably had 3 calves at some point, or will have 3 calves at some point. So if you have it in October, you have it, and you're not planning on getting those animals until spring, that's probably okay. Dance around about it. That's like, we can talk later. So what's going to happen October 1st through the 7th, you apply, you're technically able to go ahead and purchase whatever you want to purchase during that time. It now qualifies. You're just not guaranteed of getting reimbursed for that because you haven't been accepted into the program yet. So typically mid-December, you're going to get a notification letter. Hey, you've been accepted, or they may call you in November and say, hey, some information here's not, you might need a little bit more information to help get your application approved. Typically, it's not a big deal. Mid-December, you get the approval letter. Okay, you're guaranteed now, as long as you complete the requirements as far as your purchasing, you're going to get reimbursed for whatever you purchased and up to that amount. You're going to actually get your reimbursement packet in January sometime, and then each of the programs has a different time at which you can submit for reimbursement, just so they don't get them all at one time to get flooded, because I want you to get your money about as quick as possible. But every one of them has about a month prior to the reimbursement deadline, they have a notification deadline. So, hey, this year you're planning on building something and you had a health issue or something like that, and you just couldn't complete it. You couldn't do what you said you were going to do. As long as you turn in that letter declining funds a month before their deadline, no hard feelings, come back, apply next year, and we'll see you again. If you just don't turn in that reimbursement deadline and don't turn in reimbursement, don't decline the funds, they kind of get their feelings hurt a little bit because you took money that could have gone to somebody else. And so they may put you on a blacklist there for a while and you don't get to apply. So it's important that life happens, decline it if you can't use it this year, but make sure you try to complete what you say you're going to complete or let them know. But those are the rest of the deadlines to try to get everything cleaned up by August 1st so they can begin the next year. I don't know if that helped answer that question or not, but yeah, unfortunately, because it was beforehand, no.
Yeah, it's that October date. You just gotta wait until then.
All right. Any other questions regarding ag enhancement?
I think I saw that they help you purchase the farm.
No.
Was that? I wasn't sure the funding that.
So the funding will only help on the actual equipment.
Okay.
Well, livestock equipment.
It's
Typically, it does not have anything to do with increasing property value.
Okay.
Though a hay barn does. So, it's guys, it's on the mezzanine. Danny, it's on the mezzanine.
Oh, sorry.
You're welcome to sign in.
Yeah, and it's enhancing what you already have. That's kind of the
Yeah.
deal with it. They're enhancing what you've already got going.
Yeah, so in some, if you have a neighbor that they've been in really good partnership with, you can build a hay barn on their property. They will let you. So you don't have to own the actual property. You can build a hay barn, you can have your cattle on their property, and you can still qualify for a lot of things. When something happens, they sell that farm, your hay barn goes away with it, but you can do that if you want to, if you've got an arrangement set up. But fortunately, there's no funding source with them for the ag enhancement program. There is, we'll talk about the next program. There's really not any great programs that have funding sources. So the USDA Agriculture Resource Service and the Farm Service Agency have probably the best programs. And they vary because of their interest rates depending on where it's at. So sometimes a program like Farm Credit can have actually a better interest rate on some of their programs than what some of these beginning farmer programs. But a lot of the beginning farm programs, they have a lot of varying things that you have to qualify for. So we'll put in make sure we remember to put in the Farm Service Agency. That's the best one to contact. They're the best one I know as far as getting any type of funding through that. It's just typically there's very few that are just like a grant. It's more of a interest rate. So the other one that I want to talk about that we see frequently used is the USDA NRCS, go back to it, an NRCS program called EQIP. It's Natural Resource and Conservation Service. They're all about soil and water quality. And so that's their main thing. So when they talk about doing an improvement on your farm, it's not so that you have, in theory, more profitable cattle. It's so that your cattle are having less impact on soil and water quality or some horticulture production that you're doing. So it crosses over into both horticulture and agriculture. So the way the funding starts is it starts out at the federal level and it moves down to the state. So each state gets a pool of money and each state then starts to break that up into pool. That money goes to all the counties. They have a county level office. NRCS has a federal county level office. And then they have a state pool. And so each county gets their own little pool to be able to work with. And then they have the state pool. So each county sets its own priorities. They have a working board of people and producers, and they go around and set the priorities for their county. So for Williamson County, it doesn't do any good to probably set a bunch of priorities for timber. And so somebody would score really high on timber would probably not do very well. So they don't set a priority for timber. They set it more based on what we see around here, which is a lot of people trying to raise some sort of animal or potentially do some horticulture projects. So that's based on the Williamson County. So what happens is we start to get priorities. So when they do it, it's an application and you're scored points on that application. And so, like I said, soil and water is important. So if they're going to try to do a lot of soil quality, and so we want to, we have pastures. A lot of people have pastures they're trying to put livestock on. And so if you have 5 horses on 3 acres, it's going to be hard to manage really good soil quality because you're getting a lot of compaction. There's very little ability for that grass to actually grow, improve soil quality, and water quality. So they might say, okay, if you've got cattle, maybe you need to have 15 acres for 5 head of cattle or 10 acres. Something that you can actually manage those cattle on so that you're not eroding the land or you're not overgrazing the land. So that might be one of their scoring systems to make sure that you actually can do what you say you're going to do. So they'll go through there, they'll give you certain points, and then they will prioritize who gets some of that funding. So this funding is actually a little bit different in that it is a 75-25, where the first one was 50-50. This is 75-25. So they pay for 75%, you pay for 25%. A lot of times that 25% is the labor. So if you do the labor yourself, some of it can be 100% cost share on what they're gonna do. So what you can see up here, so doing some cross fencing, exclusion fencing, not perimeter fencing, cross fencing. So exclusion fencing be like if you had a pond, and that's where those animals are watering out of. It might be, or a creek. It might be fencing off that creek so they can no longer water in there, or it's reducing it down to one point. So instead of having complete access to the entire stream, they'll help put in fencing along the entire stream except for one little point where they can come in there and access that water. Or the pond might be that fencing off that entire pond, and then in turn also adding automatic water so that you can actually water from that instead of the pond, which typically, unless you have to utilize a pond, typically recommend not utilizing a pond. There's certain situations that you just need to utilize a pond because you don't have any other way to water. But a lot of times that's where we see a lot of disease and other things that are coming along. But that's why they start to help with some of these things. Forestry management, they'll help you develop a forestry management plan. That might help, especially if you're looking for the green belt status. So they can help do some of those things. They can help do there's additional funding that would come with that. Forestry and wildlife practices, trying to do some seeding with some annuals that they can help with, some pollinators. And they do some things with high tunnels. Now that's a little bit more of a stringent application to go through there, but those are 5 priorities that Williamson County kind of puts in. The high tunnels are a little bit more towards the bottom of those priorities. So you'd have to score pretty well in some other areas, but those are 5 big priorities as far as Williamson County. Like I said, each county has a few different, they set their own priorities, but for the most part around here, they're all going to be pretty similar along the way. So anybody have any questions regarding that? And so, once it goes through, typically, applications are typically in late November, and this is Williamson County's district conservationist. His name is Trent Cash. You can work with gentlemen outside. A lot of times they'll try to get you to their county first, but they get a lot of movement of people. So sometimes there's just gaps in time where there's nobody there. So a lot of times they'll transfer you to some other county to help get you served for that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To do that program, do you have to register your farm with the USDA?
Typically, yes.
What do you know what that entails?
The question was, to do that program, do you have to register your farm through
A
USDA?
lot of times that will be depending on the program you pick. The Farm Service Agency, anytime you go through the Farm Service Agency, like if you get, if we have an extreme drought, a lot of times like this past year, even though it only takes like 2 weeks when it's 95 and not raining to kill a lot of things, whether you got cut flowers, whether you got grass trying to graze, it only takes a couple of weeks to kill it. Well, their parameter already takes, you gotta have an extended period of 8 weeks. Well, that knocks you right out, but everything's dead anyway. So that program, so you can buy like insurance to the Farm Service Agency for drought periods like that. That time you're gonna have to register. Some of these equip programs, I'm not sure exactly how much you have to actually register for that. It's a very basic, about 1-page application. So I don't know that you actually have to officially register. From the Farm Service Agency, you're going to do a little bit more of the registration of what you have going on. So just so that the pool of funding is available at the county level, they prioritize, and when it runs out, it runs out. A lot of times they don't utilize a lot of their funding. They want to make sure they try to utilize it. So they're pretty motivated to get it out, but they can only score what they can score. So, because they want to make sure that they get their same pool of money back. So the next year, but let's say that there's a bunch of people apply this year and they run out of money. What they do is they kick it up to the state. And so hopefully that state pool of money will then work back. So hopefully you get an application and it qualifies under a lot of their parameters. Hopefully you'll get something tied to it. Grazing is important if you're on the livestock side with animals. It is really important that you meet the kind of grazing requirements. If your pasture looks like this floor here, gonna be very hard for you to manage it, or if their numbers just don't add up. Like I said, 5 horses on 3 acres, you gonna be pretty difficult to come up with a management plan for that. But I encourage you to reach out to Trent. It doesn't hurt anything for him to come out and get a feel for what you got going on and what programs that might be interested in. But there's some pretty good things. Just remember, it's geared towards soil and water quality ultimately. So, but in return, it's helping other aspects of you guys' interest. Any other questions about EQIP?
I don't know if it was equipped, so I reached out to the Tennessee Department of Forestry a couple years ago.
Yep.
And they came out and did a 17-acre prescribed burn for me on a section of my farm.
Yes.
What program was, and it was a cost share. I paid like $40 an acre, but what program was that?
That, the forestry, every once in a while, they come out with some things, and so
It wasn't equipped.
probably not, but it could have been. It most likely was not, but the Department of Division of Forestry sometimes has some of those things. Especially if you're looking, anybody in the greenbelt status for the forestry. Okay, so a lot of times you can utilize this program simultaneously or use this program to develop your plan for submission for the greenbelt status, but that's probably through the Division of Forestry. The question was, they had a prescribed burn done by the Department of Forestry and it only cost them $40. So you gotta remember but they're doing that not just so that you have a $40 prescribed burn, it's because they're hoping that will offset, that will prevent other issues. So that's just the way a lot of these programs were designed to prevent other issues from occurring down the line.
And one of the newer programs that we didn't mention, but it falls under TAP is, and some of you would qualify, some of you may not, but if you do have like agritourism, you have a space that's open to the public can access. They do have where they will help with planting trees. And they will cover a lot of the cost of soil, irrigation, shipping costs, tree costs. They'll cover a lot of that. But the only stipulation is that has to be a publicly accessed space. So a lot of you on your private property that wouldn't necessarily qualify, but let's say you are doing agritourism, you're doing something like that, you would qualify under those as well. So that's a newer one that they've come out with. It's a lot of it's geared towards urban forestry and HOAs and things like that. But it does work if you do have a parcel of your land that is publicly accessible.
Any other questions that you guys may have? Like I said, a lot of this stuff as we start to dive deeper in a lot of these areas, we'll start to get into more of those specific questions and we'll keep referencing a lot of this stuff along the way, but just don't hesitate in the questions you guys have. That's what we're here to try to help you with along the way. And then if there's something that you want to see, especially we may not be able to implement it for this course, but we'll try to do a one-off course just to kind of give you guys that information. Because if you guys are asking for it, it means somebody else is probably asking for it as well. So
Any questions? Zoom.
we will record this, or this is being recorded, and so then we'll get it to you guys review it and then get access to any of the links from any of the presentation part.
If you have a question on Zoom, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, this was kind of a short week. Like I said, the rest, the next couple, while we're kind of getting through the colder weather and the shorter nights, we're going to be geared towards Zoom, try to get you that information. Like I said, if you miss it, that's okay. And then once we ramp up into the hands-on stuff, then we'll be ready to rock and roll. So
Yeah, last year we were pruning fruit trees and it was dark and we were worried someone might chop a finger off. So we're hoping to push it back enough so that we can have enough daylight to do a lot of those fun hands-on things.
all right.
All right. Thank y'all so much. And for those on Zoom,
Let us know what you need here.
see y'all on Zoom.